Hello and welcome to this tutorial. Today we're going to be going over an effect that I figured out how to do, and you see in some movies. Pretty neat. So the idea is, I actually have the video here. This is what the final product should look like. So, like in movies, you sometimes see when something's invisible or cloaked, that it's not really fully invisible, but seen as a distortion in the background. To replicate this effect automatically without needing a whole bunch of masking layers, as you can see here. Come on, play. You can see here. And then we're going to work on the effect to have them fade in later, like this. So that is what we'll be working on from the start here. So just open up, this is starting out with just the default screen. And we're going to be going from the default view into the comprising or whatever view. So just check use nodes, because we're definitely going to be using the nodes. And just render out a single image, so there's no blank information for later. Next, we're not going to be using this render layer node for a while, so we can just uncheck that. And then, okay, first thing we're going to do is we're going to need an image. This is going to be just the background image. So go and find the video you'll be using. You can use any video where everyone starts off screen and walks on screen, and also any video. The camera it must have been recorded by a camera mounted very firmly on a stand. Any bumps or jiggles in the camera will totally mess it up, and this effect will not be able to be done with it. So we're going to duplicate that. We need 2 of them. But also, we're going to go down here in the 3D view and add that same image as a background. All right. Next, just remember to click Match Movie Length here. It automatically changes the frame display. And then copy this number. Paste this number at the time bar on the end, and also on one of these images on the frame slot here. All right, so now as you can see, if we go into the middle of it, I'm just going to move to a different layer so we don't see the cube anymore. We move into the middle of the video here and the node here are displaying the same things. So next, we're going to actually use what the primary thing that creates this effect is. It's called the difference key. What it will do is it'll take 2 images and figure, okay, what is different between these 2 images? And this step right here I'm doing now, you don't need to do. I am just adding a viewer to explain better what this does. All right, so this in the background here is the video itself just set in the background. Now the difference key, this is the result from the difference key. What it is doing is identifying which pixels are different between this video and this background image. Now, if you correctly mounted your camera on a stand, then all the background should be the same, as nothing's moved. However, the 2 people that ran up is a large difference, so they get highlighted in white. However, it's not always perfect. There is frequently just little bits of the background left behind. And then that can be difficult to deal with later. When you actually render it out, it'll create funny, odd-looking stuff where you get all this. So to help eliminate that, it doesn't work for all of it, but some of it, you need to add a blur node, and then just connect one on each side of the image inputs here. And put these up. I found around 6 is a good number. And that just almost totally eliminates all the background stuff. The reason why that works is because it's individual pixels that are getting off. But if you blur nearby pixels together, it's not quite off so much. And if you're not quite happy with this, the tolerance allows the difference in the pixels before it's changed. So if we put this all the way up, it doesn't pick up anything. If we put it all the way down, it picks up nearly everything. So we just want to keep adjusting this sensitivity up and down. This controls how much the edges are blurred, I guess. put it all the way up, it makes everything really fuzzy. So we just kind of keep tweaking with those until we find a look. All right, so that just almost totally eliminates all the background there. That is pretty much what we want. All right, next, to have it actually render out, we need to add a mix node. All right, for input, for the top input, connect just the background image. For the factor input, connect the MADI from the difference key. And then next we're going to add a translate node. Connect this image once again to here. And then we are going to connect the other side to here. So what this does is this figures out any area that is highlighted in white here will run through this image slot. Anything that is black here will run through this image slot. So now if we connect this over here, oh, and also, I forgot to do this earlier. Keep in mind that you're going to have to adjust your definition settings to the same settings the camera had. So it's shot in 720p at 30 frames a second. Just render another image. Okay, it should do. What's going on with this? Should render a new image. Hang on. There we go. Okay. So far you really can't see anything different because it's taking out them and replacing them exactly with what it was. Now to create that distortion we want, or we need to set, on this translate node, we need to set warp to both axes, and then set this to about -30 on both the x and the y value. So now the background, now these white spots, it actually shifts the background image and then displays that over the white spots. Like at the moment, these two aren't quite visible enough, so we need to turn the tolerance down a bit to make them more visible. Okay, that's probably about as far as I can go. So now they're a bit more visible. So that's basically it. This will automatically adjust to every image. You can see it kind of over here. And every time you change it, it automatically does all the adjustments. So next what you're going to do is have them actually be able to fade back into the video. So we need to duplicate, just get a new mix node, have the image connect on one side, and then have the other side connect on the movie clip here. What this does is if you set this at half, it will render half of what this is doing, half of what's going through this node, which is the people, just with which the two people here, kind of fading out, and then half the main video here. So you can just kind of scroll it however you like. So then if we want them to actually fade in the middle of the video, what we're going to have to do is scale this down to 0, find what point you want to start them fading in. That looks about good. Hover over that and press I. That'll insert a keyframe. So then we figure out, okay, how long do we want? We need to figure out, okay, I want them to be completely opaque by here. So I'm going to scale this all the way up, and once again press I. So as we go between, it will automatically go between. However, if we just have them simply fade in, it's not going to look anything special, really, if we just had them only fade in. So to get that interesting lines, was interesting, I don't know how to describe it, but to get that interesting look in there, we need to get another mix node, connect this one between this translate node. No, wait, is this right? Hang on a moment. Sorry. Okay, connect the mix between these two mix nodes. And just set the factor all the way up to 1 just to begin with, so we can see the differences the best. Next, we're going to have to create a new texture for this. So if you have a particular image that you'd like to use, that'd be fine. If you want to generate a texture inside a Blender, the best one I find is the magic texture for this. Add new texture, new texture type, go to magic. And I want it to be mostly blue, so let's set the blue way up to 2. And once again, we're just kind of messing around with settings. At this point, just finding something that looks good. Looks about like the sort of thing I'm trying to achieve here. Woo. Okay, that's not. Man, it just really destroys my pattern if I... Oh, well, so that should be good. So next we're going to bring this texture into the node editor. So just a texture node. Load up the correct texture. And then connect the color to the empty image slot. And apparently I did not stick this mix node in the right spot. Oops. Okay, this one goes here. Sorry about that. All right, it needs to be connected with the upper one being connected to this translate node here. And then, yes, connected to the bottom of that image there. And then, all right, this is getting all too crowded. Let's just spread things out a bit. All right, and then this color value goes to the image here. So now instead of being the shifted background, these people appear only as the texture. Now this doesn't look quite right. It's way too big to have any kind of a pattern to it. So we need to set the scale to about, let's say, 20. Just all of these. Looks about good. Maybe a bit smaller, say 10. There's no exact values you need for this. It's just kind of play around with it, see what looks nice. Oh, looks good. All right, so now this bar here, this factor bar, will control how much this texture is influencing the transparent people here. So if it's going all the way off, it's not influencing at all. It's just the shifted background. If it goes all the way up, there is no shifted background, and it's just a solid texture. We never really want to go above about half, because if you see it in too much detail, it doesn't look quite as realistic. So let's set that back up to 15. Just a lot of experimentation at this point. There isn't much hard and fast you need to. All right, so the next thing, to make this look more interesting, we're going to have it kind of move and shift, so it's not just a static looking texture. What we're going to do is get another translate node, however you want to do that. Just duplicate, create a new one, whatever. And set both these values to 0. Next, we're going to hover over and keyframe both these values by just hovering over and pressing I. Next, we're going to just change the view real fast to the graph editor. Now here we have the X and Y values you just keyed in. Right, press N to open up that panel. We're going to add a generator modifier. The only setting we need to tweak here is where it says the X value as 1 here. We need to set that as 5. And what this does is this just generates a line of values that it'll animate on. Just same thing over here. And now we'll go back to the node editor. What that does is that generated values for this to follow. So you can see it's being moved. Each frame is being moved to a new location. So if we change the texture so you have lines here, go to the next frame, you see the whole texture is moving. Now this is really not a necessary step. It just adds an interesting look to it. All right, so next, just like we keyframed the other slider here fading in and out, we need to keyframe this one fading in and out as well. So it's good to have it at 0, and start fading in just before people start fading in. Reach its peak about the time they are half faded in, and then die out to 0 a bit after they are fully faded in. So that way, this is when they are fully cloaked. And you can see here starting to decloak. And just growing more solid, and then the texture starts going away more and more. All right, so you can see that. And so far that looks pretty good, and that's really about it. So if you want to, so that's really about it for the tutorial on how to make that cloaking effect. However, I will follow through and show you how to do some of the more basic stuff on actually rendering out your video. All right, so sometimes you're going to want to have this effect as well as some other just animations you want to insert in. To insert the rest of the stuff in, you need to add another mix node, probably one of the most used nodes. All right, set the time bar back to 0. Under shading, we want the sky, and under the render panel, in shading, we want the sky alpha to be transparent. Just render out another video image just for it to update. Okay, next we are going to connect from this render layer over here we have been ignoring for a long time. We need to connect the image from this to the bottom image on this mix, and also the alpha into the factor. So now if we want to, we render an image of the cube. Cube will show up during all the other effects here. Okay, next to get the video to actually render as a video, in the render settings down here under output, you need to click on this little file. This will let you decide where you want to stick it at. So just call it cloak test. And instead of PNG, we don't want a string of images, we want a video. So I find this one the most helpful because you can add sound to it, and it's a pretty well compressed file format without losing a noticeable amount of quality. So so I find this just generally a good file to use if you have a lot of space on your hard drive and you don't really care. AVI JPEG or AVI RAW are probably a bit better quality somehow. I'm not sure. I'm not really looking into it too much. So then if you're going with this, to add the sound, you're going to have the audio codecs or whatever it's called, I don't even know what this means, set to MP3. Otherwise, it won't get the sound the way you're wanting it to. Next, to actually add the sound into the video, we're going down to video editing, jump back to frame 0, add a movie clip, and once again, that same clip we've been using, wherever it just went, there we go. And we're going to actually delete and see here the movie clip is playing in the video editor here. However, we don't want this blue bar here, because if this blue bar is selected, it will actually it'll only render the video. It won't actually render any of the effects we've been doing, which kind of defeats the purpose. However, we want the sound in there. So when Blender imports the video, it imports the sound and the video separately. So we can delete the video here and keep the sound. And that is pretty much it. We just move this to a new layer so we're not rendering the cube in. We're leaving that out, and that's pretty much it. You're all ready to go. So